Hi, my name is Aksik, aka Annika. Welcome to my channel. Very happy to see you here. And today's the day when I finally start my promised series about my art materials. Eventually, the goal is to go through all of them. Warning, it'll take a while. But today we're starting with, as I have kind of promised, my water-based markers. And let me first make clear and warn everybody what this video is not going to be. It is not going to be super organized video where I show you all the swatches and compare the swatches and the colorways, because to be honest, for most of my sets I don't have swatches, I don't do them, and even if I try to do them, I lose them or don't use them, even if they are there. I kind of prefer to sort my markers by colorways, you'll see in a second, and kind of similar colors already, and then I kind of know them also by now, pretty much by heart. And I like to kind of scribble them out and play them immediately before I actually put them onto the coloring page, because that gives me a fresher perspective. And I know that, you know, for a lot of you that would be totally unacceptable way of working. You like to have your very well organized supplies, your numbered markers, and then, you know, swatch for every marker, and you look for specific colors. I don't work that way. I kind of grab and mix and play with them. And also, to be honest, most of them don't have any identifiers on them, so it would, you know, I would need to kind of create identifiers for them and then create the swatches. And, you know, this time investment alone for me is just kind of useless, because I know that I'm not going to use those swatches anyway. This is not how I work with water-based markers. I do swatch my watercolors, I do swatch my alcohol markers, but not my water-based markers. So, but what I will be talking about, and what I think you will be interested in, and what would be useful, is I will kind of have, in a way, a mini review about each of my sets, and there are many of them, because I really like them and I like the variety. And I will tell you what they are good for, what they are not that good for, the particular sets and particular types, which ones I like more, which ones I like less, and which ones I haven't really gotten that familiar with, because there are one or two of these as well. So let's start. And I also pulled out a couple of books here to kind of show, give you an idea, you know, what I'm talking about here. Wild Summer, one of my favorite Joseph Catimbang's mythographics. You know, it's printed in China, and this one has the paper that takes water pretty well, and you can kind of blend watercolors, not directly on the paper, but you can scribble them onto the palette and kind of blend and play with them in a way like watercolors on these pages. And I find this one of the best ways to work in this book. It really suits Catimbang style. Like, this one is done purely with water-based markers. This I consider a base. Okay, this is kind of bunch of colors. Pretty sure these were Stabilo 68 pens, scribbled onto the palette, and then picked up with water brush and kind of layered, and, you know, kind of a basic shading put down as well. And technically, if you look at it, if you wanted a softer page, that could be enough. You don't need to go super contrasted here. There's contrast enough already. It's just I like my pages pretty contrasted. This one is all based with water-based markers, and most of the shading kind of was already done with them as well. I just added a little bit of pencil contrast, extra contrast here and there. But the main work was done with water-based markers the same way. I will show you how I work like this. This one, same story. The background wasn't now. The background was gouache. But everything else was based with water-based markers the same way, like I just explained. This one, these are all water-based markers. The base that is there, I haven't, finished putting down the base. I love that page. I kind of, when the summer is here. Well, it kind of is here. I should probably do this page soon. It's really lovely. But yeah, you can put down kind of interesting color variations, and it's very easy. It goes super fast. Well, super fast relatively, because those are very, very detailed images. It's not going to be a 15-minute job. But it's still, compared to most other methods I have found, gives me the most color variety, soft blends, interesting ways to kind of create contrast and play with different colors blending into each other. And it goes pretty fast. So I love working with them now. In the same story here as well. It's all water-based marker. Little bits that I have put down, and same way I'm picking it up from the palette. So I really like working in those newer mythographic books with this base, which is, as I said, was water-based markers with a water brush. So, but I don't really put them much direct on the paper here, unless there's kind of a small details that are just easier to kind of deal with, and I want them pretty vibrant. Water-based markers, even the so-called pastel ones, are always going to be pretty vibrant. So they kind of, if you use them as a base or the main medium for your page, you're already establishing that this is going to be pretty punchy, pretty vibrant, pretty saturated page, unless you use them super diluted. This, I thought, I'll kind of try to show some samples here how the water-based markers behave on Amazon paper. This is now your typical Amazon paper. I didn't take Japanese books. I try not to order from Amazon UK or any place else those books. I try to wait until I put in Amazon Japan order, and if I want something Amazon printed, I will get it there, because the paper is just so much more permissive regarding water media especially. Sometimes, by the way, not even that much greater, or with pencils, but with water-based media and basing, any basing, even with alcohol markers, it's much better. This one is based here with satin glazing liquid. That page and water-based markers act certain way. I might eventually do a video. Well, I have it in my plans, how to work on satin glazing and how it behaves with different media. So I might, kind of show how to put, how they behave on satin glaze as well, because I have some pages here done with satin glazing, or just, how they behave on the Amazon printed, in the Amazon printed books. The short answer is bleeding. They will bleed. It's kind of tricky to actually put down bases and color on Amazon printed paper, because you have to be super careful. It's very soft paper where anything water-based will spread quite uncontrollably, and you will can get pretty nasty bleeds. And this one is Fairy Tales and Folklore by Emilia Lidehall Öberg. And this paper now is the opposite. It's absolutely amazing for water-based markers. It takes them fantastically. It's a kind of a smooth paper, so any marker would go down really well here. Even the markers that streak pretty badly on most other papers, behave better in this book. And the same kind of a similar story also with kind of a Honor and books. It also, of course, depends on the publisher, you know, how the, you know, what type of a paper it has. But here you can see I have put some just plain base down, and it's water-based markers. And as you can see, there's almost no streaking. So I thought I'd use this little page here at the front, you know, if I want to demonstrate some markers, you know, on the good paper, I will do it here. So that was a lot of talk and no markers shown yet. I am very sorry. I tend to get carried away. So let's start. Here is my main box or tray. This is now the box I would be using most of the time, or all the time. It's pretty much underneath my desk on top of some other boxes, and this one I will pull out the most often. And there's a variety of markers here. We will go through it in a second. Basically, this box is, you know, those fridge organizers. That's what it is. So that will give you an idea how big it is. You know, kind of those fridge organizer boxes that slide in, you know, for the kind of a 2 per shelf type of a thing. This is what they are. And I find it kind of size-wise very handy. It's also kind of easy to lift. It's not too big, it's not too small. It takes quite a lot of markers. And the way I am storing them is that in this box I have different ways for different kind of markers, but in this box, in my most used ones, I store them by kind of a colorways or color types. So kind of a warms, you know, browns, but I store them by brand still, because you know, these ones I know pretty well, so I know, you know, which brand, you know, will work well with other ones, what colors they actually are, because in water-based markers the barrel color can be very deceptive. So let's start with something. Okay, I am going to pull out one of the sets that I was very happy with when I found it, and still am. So this is Stabilo, and those are basically their kind of water-based or watercolor markers, and they have brush tips. They have 2 different types, kind of a Staedtler, sorry, not Stabilo, it's a Staedtler. And they have 2 types. They have one type that is kind of very like Crayola, and I'll show these to you later, but these ones come in a set of, I think the maximum set is 36. There's no bigger set, but they are very nice, and they have this nice, pretty hefty brush tip. They have, and the other side has this, it's almost a fine liner. It looks on the screen here like it's a kind of a, just kind of a fine felt nib, and it is kind of felty, but it's very, very fine and also quite scratchy. It's not really something you want to color any big areas with. It's for tiny areas, or kind of making, you know, if you want to add like fine liner shading, you know, kind of extra darkness some places or extra accents, that is what you would use that one for. You would not use that tip for anything else. I like these specific markers very much. The inks are nice. The caps actually, well, you can see not really great, but you know, since there's only 36 of them, I kind of know know them and how they behave and what they do, because the more you use the material, the more familiar it becomes. With Prismas, I almost never look at my swatch, because I know them. I don't really need to look at the swatch, you know, too much. Same with, you know, chroma flows. I know them. So, you know, and with many other kind of art materials. So if you know the material, you don't really need to consult the swatch chart that much. These ones do not have, and also for them to be swatched, you'd need to put some numbers on them because they don't really have any identifiers on them. But as I said, there is only like 36 of them. That is not an overwhelming amount. The colors in this 36 set, though, there's kind of quite a lot of interesting, like for example, this steely blue gray, which is one of my favorites to use from here. There's quite a lot of kind of interesting strong colors. I love this one, which is really dark. That works beautifully in night skies. It's gorgeous ink. I also like their range of reds very much, which, you know, I can't really show to you very well, but here is a bit of now, I'll show you how they wash, how they dissolve. Wait a second. I found a water brush. So on regular paper, of course, they won't dissolve very well, but on the mixed media paper, this is, well, look at this, like it's a beautiful primary red, which is actually not that common. And you can see how well it washes out on the mixed media paper. And that also will go for all the books, you know, the Japanese books and some of the books by Western publishers as well, that you can actually dissolve the marker straight on the paper. But not all markers are made equal, and, you know, some of them just won't dissolve as well, but these ones dissolve really well. And the colors are beautiful and they mix very well also. So absolutely recommend it. Like these markers a lot. And, you know, if you are looking for a nice brush marker, yeah, absolutely, you can go for them. If you want me to show quickly here, okay, let's pick something quick. Okay, let's do something with this the peachy yellowy color. And you can see how I am kind of ignoring everybody's suggestions that you should go just only one way and one layer, to kind of have all the streaks going in one direction. I don't like that. I'd rather have a bit more texture. You can see if there is a bit of unevenness and, you know, kind of streaking, it kind of gets lost because it looks like deliberate texture if you do it this way. So, but you can see that there's basically no streaking here. And if you don't believe me that this is just, you know, how it is, okay, what could we do here? It's just a regular one, same color, pull it out. I have no idea what that thing is, but let's make a couple of feathers here. And this is just your regular Amazon paper. And I'm doing like a couple of feathers. You can see how I'm making little circles, that I'd rather have a little bit of texture and unevenness to the color than have uniform stripes running. This is just my taste. Like, I don't like that style. I can live with texture because I can disguise quite a lot of it with different, you know, pencils on top, and B, it can just make the picture look more interesting. And you can see from here how well these go down even on Amazon paper with no major streaking. And of course, yes, they will go through. Absolutely, because they are a juicy marker. Amazon books, pretty much anything water-based will go through. And also, I didn't just put them down, you know, carefully in one layer. Like sometimes, you know, people, you know, if you are trying very, very, very desperately not to get the marker through, then this is how you color. No, I just went pretty harshly. And they can also be put down onto the palette and picked up with water brush. Pretty much they're all rounders, highly recommended. The price isn't a killer. I will put, oh, and I will put the links of, you know, whatever I can find on Amazon. I will put the links into the description box, so you can find them there. Hopefully, you know, it'll help you. This video, I'm warning you, is going to be long. So get yourself maybe a drink or take a break in between, because we're going to be here for a while. Okie doke. The next ones from this fantastic magical box I have, the next ones I'm pulling out are these. And these are Faber Castell Connector pens. There's, was it 90 or 100 of them? Do not remember. Doesn't really, you know, it's okay. We live without that knowledge. They are meant for kids. They are made for essentially small kids. My daughter, who is 16, still has fond memories of these, and still when she gets hands on them, when I'm working with them, she will come and make a crown out of them. She will click them together, make a crown, and put it on her head, and, you know, giggle a little bit, because, you know, they are literally made for kids with that in mind. They are, because of that clicking action, though, that they click together like this. It's very easy to kind of store them by kind of colorways like this, so I don't even have to use rubber bands. I put them into like this, so they run in a blending groups for me. You know, if I should kind of use blending groups, or sometimes I don't, but sometimes I do, and it's super handy. For these, I kind of made, like, there were stickers, long stickers, and I scribbled the marker onto them and then wrapped it around, but it just keeps disappearing so fast and dissolving, you know, if you happen to grab it with the wet hand. I know I should have put sticky tape on top of it, but I just, you know, didn't think of it. And, you know, I'm not sure if I did it for some colorways, you know, like this, you can see here what the actual colors are. And to be honest, the barrel colors actually, if in this case, for this kiddie set, the barrel colors actually are quite close to the actual, not all of them, okay, but, you know, they are close, or way closer than in some other sets, which are actually more expensive. And they are not expensive. They're pretty budgety if you get them, and to be honest, I really recommend them. They have awful tips. Okay, no, I wouldn't go color much with them. I have seen Jackie from Spare Room Studio and doing magical things with them actually on paper with these tips. I hate coloring with these tips, you know, on the actual kind of a paper. They are pretty scratchy, they are small, they are super streaky. I can see if this, let this little light here. They're also not super juicy, not exactly dry, but they're not very juicy. And you can, you know, if you put them down like this softly, you can get them even in small areas, but the moment the area gets bigger, you will get big streaking. And, you know, here is again, but why do I recommend them? I can also put them down on this paper. You know, where would I use it? don't really even want to put it down much here, but let's do this leaf here. And even on this paper, I am getting a bit of streak, so I have to work a bit, you know, kind of harder and faster to avoid the streaking. And even then, you know, you can kind of feel the unevenness. I can lift it to you and show it to you. Now, what is good about them is that they have fantastic inks. Really, really nice inks. And I use them, and in many of the, you know, the mythographic, like I showed you in the beginning of the video, I would have used these in combination with other much more expensive sets. And the inks are just lovely. So I work with them the old-fashioned way. I actually have some other palettes as well, but this one was kind of nice size. So I essentially take this blue. This is a cardboard coffee jars. This is a lid of that, and I'm using it constantly in my craft room. And you take a water brush, you pick it up. You might even, you know, squeeze a little bit water into it if you want it to be lighter, and you just apply it to the paper. And they are so beautiful. They move so well, and the colors are just lovely. They have loads of kind of more interesting, more sophisticated colors that are often not in the water-based marker sets. So although I'm not recommending them if you want to actually color with them onto the paper directly, I do recommend them if you want to work with them off the palette like this. They are gorgeous. Also, it is possible, of course, to do smaller areas with them. But one thing that I'm kind of, if you color with water-based markers, to me, one of the big secrets, not how to not damage your paper, and it's not a secret, and everything is called secret. It's not a secret as such, but how to do it so you would minimize the damage is, I don't know how to show it. Don't press on the paper. Work on the paper with as light touch as you can. Even if you go over some areas, the more you kind of manipulate and scrub, and the harder you press, the more you're going to damage. But if you work just very, very gently, and these are really bad example because they are super streaky. Okay, you can see here, this is not now great paper, okay? This is the cheapest possible white post-its, okay? You can see how badly they streak. So yeah, no, I'm not recommending them as a coloring markers, but I do recommend them as a set of wonderful colors. But once again, like but the way Jackie works with them, that she scribbles them onto the paper and then dissolves them right away. She puts loads of water onto them and they kind of spread and dissolve. And you can watch her channel. She does fantastic things with them. For me, they don't really work like that. I don't know how to work like that. I prefer to work with them off the palette like this. So this is how the life works here because of the Axic. Now, next ones. These ones I got kind of as an experiment quite recently. They are BIC Intensity markers, and I think there was 24 of them. I stuck them into 2 bundles. One is kind of a cools, which is kind of your blues, your greens, your grays, your black, and then the second one is your warms, which includes the browns, the oranges, pinks, yellows, you know, reds, all such. I don't have much to say about them because I haven't really used them very much. I was kind of bitterly disappointed. I wasn't expecting miracles, but I had heard that their inks are very nice. So I was in the art shop, and there was not art shop, I was in the bookshop, and I wanted to buy something kind of supply wise for myself, and there was pretty much nothing there. So I kind of picked up this little set. They have the same pretty terrible nibs, which are hard and small, and you can see like small areas, yes, you can do evenly-ish, but yes, they will streak. As far as working with water, I'm putting it down on the mixed media paper now. Let's make sure that I have my brush is activated, but you can see all the marker lines on the paper as you dissolve. I don't know if you can see it, you know, I can see still the marker texture because it is such a scratchy felt tip. It's almost impossible to get rid of the texture. Like, unlike in this brush marker, Staedtler brush marker, which gave this, you know, kind of seamless dissolving. These don't dissolve like that. So, you know, they might be, I haven't really worked with them off the palette yet, so I don't know what to think of the inks much. But the colors, you know, I've tried to kind of quick swatch for myself on a piece of paper that is now long lost because they don't have any identifiers. But I kind of quickly kind of scratched them out for myself, and they were, you know, okay. There was no kind of interesting colors or anything that would be super memorable for me. So they're okay. They're workable, but I would never use them for, maybe if you do very small mandalas, you know, and you have they do have really intense and really vibrant colors. They will probably work for that, but not for any bigger or more kind of a complicated coloring. I wouldn't go for these. So these are BIC Intensity. Just for my own records here, because I will forget by the end of this video what is what. Okay, so next ones from this box, and there's not too many sets here now, is my 6 set of Lyra skin colors. And Lyra is very much like Tombow. Anybody who is in any way familiar with Tombow markers, they are essentially almost identical. They have this really nice brush, beautiful, easy to work with. They have really juicy inks. They dissolve like this. And yes, you do actually get this nice cool brown. So they are really, really nice, and I would love to actually get the full set of them. I like them a lot. They are easy to put on paper. The colors are beautiful. I only have now, of course, experience of this kind of a skin color set. You know, you can, if you have 6 markers, you can pretty much make your mind up about, you know, what you think of these. And I would love to have bigger set if I can. For these ones, like, I can also show how smoothly they go down. Okay, let's pick something. Okay, like, I'll take this warmish pink and make one of these flowers warm pink. This is very light, of course. It's very hard to mess something up or get something streaking if the color is very light. But once again, light colors are very rare and hard to find in most of the water-based marker sets. I'm showing you one set eventually that has loads, but this is almost impossible to get now. Okay, so you can see how pale it is, so it's hard to kind of judge, but it goes down, you know, on a good paper very, very evenly. Of course, on not as good paper, it will streak like, you know, any water-based marker, but way less than many other, you know, kind of most of water-based markers. So yes, they come highly recommended. They are, of course, on the more expensive side, the kind of art markers. And oh, I forgot to show you the other tip, which is basically, you know, one of those fairly scratchy felt tips that pretty much works exactly the same. Like, for example, you know, I think that tip is pretty much identical, or not identical, but very similar in the way they work, these two. So I never even, I don't really use these tips much. I have occasionally touched them, but they might be useful for kind of tiny areas or giving some extra kind of a dark effects. But even then, I would rather go for a brush. And the second one that is like Lyra set I have, sorry, I said 6, I meant to say 12, because I also have Lyra grays, and same story, you know, everything that goes for these goes for these. So basically, yeah, really, really like them. Would love to have a full set. I think they come in a set of possibly 60 maximum. These ones, oh, I got as a test. They are Faber Castell Goldfaber dual markers, and they are essentially, once again, the same as the Lyra ones and Tombos, the same kind of a nice big brush. They are very, very nice to put down. They go down pretty much without any streaking, especially on a good paper like this. And you can see how they dissolve to pretty much nothing. They are stunning. One of my commentators kind of mentioned them to me. I didn't really know much about them or hadn't even heard about them, and said that they are fantastically kind of very juicy and very pigmented, and, you know, really nice to work with. And I absolutely agree. They are also expensive. Of course they are. So yes, I would love to have more of them. I only have one set of 6. This, I think, was called something like Boho or Bohemian, that set. And I like the colors in it, and it was also on the sale, that set, so I got that set to kind of try them out, because the price wasn't as but I think there were something like 11, which, you know, for these was actually good price. But, you know, I can get some bigger sets for it, of course. But yes, the inks are fantastic. They are nice on mixed media paper. They are stunning and fantastic to work with. Let me put them down here somewhere. Okay, let's do this flower. They just go down so well. They're very juicy. And I'd say on this paper, you could kind of, even on this paper, you could blend them out with water as well, from just direct on the paper. But I absolutely love them. But yeah, they are at the moment, you know, definitely out of my budget to the full set. But maybe one day, I don't know. I would love to replace some of my kind of a cheaper markers with really nice ones like these, which, you know, would be just nicer to work with. But I can't really complain too much, because I'm quite happy. You can see you can get a nice, reasonably, because I was kind of working kind of weirdly angled, and of course none of them have gone through, as you can see, but on this paper very little, like almost nothing goes through. I'm not going to start showing them to you on Amazon paper. You know, they don't, you know, streak relatively less on Amazon paper as well. So absolutely recommending for both straight coloring on the paper, blending with each other. Let me see, for example, I'm taking, this is now, they do have names, do they? Yeah, it's Alizarin Madder Lake. So I'm going to take this alizarin, which is, yes, it's super pigmented. And I'm going to grab this slightly lighter color, and I'm going to just go over it and blend it out with this kind of another marker direct on the paper. And you can do that with them as well. So they are fantastic. Once again, highly recommended, but it will burn a hole in your wallet. Another set which does not burn a hole in the wallet, let me write down here first. Okay, those are Faber Castell Goldfaber, and these were Lyras. What does not burn a hole in your wallet, but is an absolutely amazing set, and I recommend it so highly, are these. And I talked about them on my channel before, but you might not have seen that. These are now the markers that I wish they would make really big set of. They are by Stabilo. They're called Stabilo Power. It's 30 markers, I think, is the maximum. And they're my only water-based markers that I bought a spare set for, just in case they decide for some reason discontinue them, because I love them that much. They are kind of weird and unique, and they work so well. These are that's how I store them. I basically have pinks and blues in one bundle, greens and blue-greens here, or oranges, yellows and reds, and then gray and browns here, and also kind of what, you know, goes for skin color, but I never really use those for skin color. I don't really like these. They are, once again, like, I'm gonna show you the tip, and if you see the tip, you probably won't think much of it. It just looks pretty kind of a chubby and nondescript, and the marker itself feels pretty cheap. You know, nothing particularly amazing or special about it, but they don't streak. These are one of the markers that you're actually able to do pretty big areas on most papers. They are super gentle on the paper, as long as you, of course, don't scrub the paper. With water-based markers, always gentle touch. And this is how they dissolve. They are absolutely gorgeous, and they blend with each other. Let's take another red here. Okay, this is a bit darker red, a bit lighter red, and let's see if I can grab something that will. And this is how they mix and blend with each other. They are fantastic. Let me find an image. Okay, let's take the lightest. But of course, they don't have any pastels at all. The only kind of pastel that there is probably this really, really pale, kind of a, you know, what is supposed to be kind of peach. You kind of could use it as a skin base, but I don't really like orangey base like this. I tend to go for a bit different base. And there's also quite light gray. But even that, you know, isn't that pastel now. That's it. You know, everything is in pretty strong colors. So, you know, using them partly direct on the paper and partly off the palette is probably the best, or, you know, just blending them out, putting a little bit down and then blending it out with the water. But they are so good. Let me see if I can take that image again. I'm kind of in an awkward position here again. The ink somehow, oh, I managed to go out of the lines. Yeah, today's, you know, when you're trying to do things quickly, they never work out as well. Ink just sits somehow. I don't know what they have put into that ink, but it kind of seems to be sitting on the paper a little bit longer than other inks, you know, from other water-based markers. And therefore, you know, it doesn't have this sink into the paper, and anything that goes on top of it will become a streak effect. But just look at it. It's a red. It's really vibrant red. It should streak a little bit even on that paper. It doesn't. And I could probably just blend out with other, you know, kind of blend directly on this paper as well. And this one also, let's take, this is now the most basic Amazon paper. Can't get pretty much worse than that. Well, you probably can. I don't want to create a challenge here, but okay, let's make 2 of them in case I decide to actually use that image eventually. And then I could use it as a base, kind of. Okay. And you can see this is now colored on the most cheap and nasty Amazon paper, and there is no streaking. Well, there might be a slight texture here and there, but you know, the pencils will pretty much take care of that anyway. It is a fantastic, fantastic set if you kind of want to buy and try, you know, one set of all the ones here, and they're very cheap. They are not expensive. I think there's something like $10 or something like that if you're in States. I don't remember what they were in UK again. I would have, of course, bought them, you know, from Amazon UK. They're very cheap, and sometimes when there's sales, you know, it goes even further down. So Stabilo Power 30 set, highly, highly recommended. Can't, you know, kind of praise it enough. They are fantastic. Please, 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 Stabilo, make 100 set of these with light colors as well. And maybe even deeper darks, you know, because there's a lot, you know, kind of course, you know, if it's a 30 set, there's going to be a lot of midtones. But even the color choices are good, you know. There's some, you know, there's vibrant greens, there's kind of a more olivey, golden greens. Yes, they are beautiful, and I wish I had loads and loads and loads of colors. So these are now the Stabilo Power. And last things from this box, probably this box will take us the longest because I color with this box the most, and I have probably the biggest variety in here. These are now once again Stabilo, so the same company that produces these also produces these, and these are now the art markers, or kind of considered, you know, higher end water-based markers than these. Let's be honest, as a coloring experience goes, if you're actually working on directly on the paper, these ones are way better. But in all the fairness, the colors and the inks in this line are fantastic. So they are not super cheap. They're not kind of killer expensive either, but they're not cheap set. I think it's 50 or 60 sets, something like this. I could of course count them, but am I bothered? No, basically it's the biggest set they have. But you know, it is kind of 50 or 60, something like this in between there. And the colors are really, really good. There's fantastic color. And these ones, if you look at the barrels, the colors aren't far off. You can kind of make judgments pretty well based on the barrels. And one of the few things that you actually could do with these ones is you could technically swatch them. They do have numbers. If you look here, there is a number. Would I ever be bothered actually to kind of look for that number and fiddle around with it? Nope. I kind of know, you know, what they are. But you could swatch them. They are called Stabilo Pen 68. That is the range. And the nib, okay, this is one of these nibs, okay? It's the hard felt nib, kind of traditional, cheap kindergarten felt tip pen nib. Okay, it's actually good quality, that nib, but with that type of a nib, you're never going to have a fantastic experience. These ones would be great, absolutely amazing for kind of if you do patterns and mandalas. Yeah, absolutely. They would be fantastic, especially considering the color choices as well. Let's find a red, because for some reason I have started doing a lot of reds here. I don't like my reds though. So let's pull out, I don't know, kind of a nice deep primer red. See, I know, you know, which is which. And you can see how the colors, you know, in this one are quite close to what the barrel is. So I'm going to, and you can see how these dissolve. So although the nib isn't fantastic, it's not as scratchy as, let's say, the Faber Castell Connector pens or the BIC Intensity, which had kind of similar looking nib. It is small felt nib, but it is of better quality somehow. And the inks are amazing. And these, that's why they're in my kind of on the go, on my constant sets, because these are now absolutely perfect. And a lot of work that I have done with the graphics or any place that I use water-based markers from the palettes like this, you know, scribble them down, pick them up with a water brush, is most of the pages here, you know, that I based, a lot of the basing would have been with these because of the colors. The color range is beautiful. They break down beautifully. They're very clean. They mix very well. So if you want to work them like that, you know, as almost like a watercolors, but kind of more precise in a way and kind of cleaner, because you don't have the suspended pigments, so you get very clean, vibrant bases with these if you use them like watercolors. So, you know, like this one is done with them basically, except the kind of a gray bits of Panda, which was alcohol marker, but the rest of it, you know, the waves and the watermelon, everything was based with these markers. And, you know, many other ones here as well. I've used them a lot in this book. They are fantastic. Once again, you know, very, very highly recommended. They aren't the cheapest, but they are worth what you're paying for them. Like, they're not overpriced. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, they feel like they're not too expensive for water-based markers, but I actually believe that, you know, with the quality they have, they are worth their price. And especially if you happen to get them on the sale, because, you know, occasionally you get them on the Prime days or whatnot, with good discounts. Yeah, I would pick them up, you know, if you are interested in really good color set that mixes really, really well. And also, if you want to, if you like doing kind of vibrant patterns and mandalas, this is also great set for you. And it also has neons, which I like. Some of you will go, oh, it's a waste of, you know, kind of a waste of marker. Could have been other color. I love that there's neons here. I like to play with neons occasionally as well, kind of give this extra boost. And they have the most beautiful kind of a red neon. They have fun orange neon and yellow neon, and they also have a beautiful green neon. And I like to kind of boost pages sometimes with those neons. So we have gotten through this box, yay! And it's only an hour. Wow. I'm not even sure if I should just keep going or try to cut it in half somehow. Let's just keep going. Maybe I'll try to edit shorter, but maybe I'll just leave it be and you can decide if you, you know, kind of speed through some things or not. Next thing that I have, and I almost wish that I didn't have, is these are Crayola Colors of the World. Now, they are not readily available here for some reason. So I got my in-laws to bring them to me from States. And the only ones available were the ones with this nib. It's kind of this weird extra large nib, but it doesn't have any gap. It's kind of hard and big. And I do not like that nib. I do actually like the colors, but I don't like that nib. It's kind of a hard and unpleasant. Oh, let me put here, that's Stabilo 68 here, and this is Crayola Colors of the World. I'm putting just down a little bit here. You kind of have to get, it just does not feel good. It doesn't go down very well. They tend to be scratchy. They dissolve all right on the mixed media paper, at least. I never used them as skin colors, or almost never. I never really color with them or kind of put any bigger areas down with them directly on the paper, because that nib is not great for that. As I said, the inks are all right, but I mostly use them as kind of neutrals, you know, for kind of a nature, from tree branches to, you know, stubs to, I don't know, pine cones to, you know, anything that needs to be brown. I don't really use them for skin much. I prefer to mix my skin colors differently. I actually, you know, I can make a video eventually about that if you're interested, how I mix them with water-based markers. And I don't really use browns much at all, because I like to get kind of fun glowy skin. So yeah, I don't really know if they're going to stay in my collection. The colors I do like, you know, there's, especially if you have an image where there's a lot of kind of browns, there's, but you know, kind of, it's hard to have loads of different browns so the area still would look, you know, distinguishable. So this set has been super useful for that sort of page, that you can, you know, have loads of different tones and different undertones of browns and play with it. But even then, the coloring experience isn't particularly pleasant for me. So I don't know, you know, if they're going to be staying in my stash for a very long time, or if I will just try to, I know that I've seen that people have them with regular Crayola tips, and I would really love to get them with regular tips. I would actually kind of like them a lot, because I do like the Crayola regular tips, the super tips, but they don't seem to be available here in Europe, or at least, you know, in my corner here at all, and therefore I can't really do that. And here is another set that I have and really like, but I'm kind of limited to definitely only one-sided books. I haven't really worked with them much off the palette, so I can't tell you my experience with that. These are Ohuhu Pupe. Pupe? Oh, okay, you got the gist. And they are a lot like, built a lot like Tombos and the likes, and Lyras and the Faber Castell Goldfaber markers. You know, you have this not as big now, but pretty big brush tip, and you have this, but instead of that kind of a scratchy hard felt tip, you have actual fine liner, which I kind of appreciate more, to be honest. And they are really good. They are now those, I got them because they were advertising them as paper friendly, that, you know, they don't scratch up paper, that you can layer them on the paper without paper getting really kind of pilling and banged up. And also that they were not streaking as much as many others. So these ones actually, you know, come with very clear numbers, so they were easy to swatch. And if something comes with clear numbers like that, and if they even have the swatch here, then yes, I do swatch them. You know, it can be handy. So I did swatch them. This is the color selection. And, you know, it can be handy, of course. So, you know, to have one set that is like this. One thing, you know, it has a lot of kind of very conventional colors, not too many very interesting or kind of a tertiary colors. But I have to be fair, they are genuinely quite smooth and kind of gentle on the paper. The downside is that they will go through pretty much any paper. And you can also see, okay, this is, once again, my brush was dirty. I should really get my act together. And also, because of probably the way they are built, they don't, you can see, you can put water on them and they don't really blend out with water at all. So you can get with them almost alcohol marker like flat areas that are pretty much exactly as you see, you know, here. But you can't really lighten them with, you know, water. You can probably blend them with each other, you know, somewhat. I'll test, you know, kind of put them next to each other. Not really, no. You can pretty much do the flat coloring almost. And the flat coloring will look lovely, but it will go through. They go through so badly. So in double-sided books, I would never recommend them. But in one-sided books, if you want kind of a really nice, flat, water-based marker, you know, bigger area, yes, they would work fantastically. Only my question is, most of us have alcohol markers anyway, which will give you same or better result on the, you know, one-sided, in the one-sided books. So is it really necessary to have them? You know, if they didn't go through of, you know, all the papers, then yes, they will probably have more purpose, because then they would be really handy for using in the double-sided books, because they do give a nice flat area. But, you know, it is what it is. Let me show you. If I'm not even sure if they would go through in this book, because that's one of those fantastic papers that really lets you to kind of work with water-based markers pretty heavily without anything going through. So I'll have to see how this is going to work out for us. But you can see I'm going over areas. They almost behave like alcohol markers, but they are water-based. So it's kind of like this weird hybrid almost. But I do think that they need to kind of work on the formula though, because at the moment I can't really see a huge point in them. And no, in this book they actually didn't go through. So yeah, you could get, you know, nice flat water-based marker areas, you know, kind of a strong areas in this book. So yeah, absolutely usable in kind of a books that have better paper, kind of a thicker paper. But yeah, you can't really blend them with each other, and they don't blend out with water, which is kind of weird for water-based marker, but there you go. This is how they behave. They're cool and interesting, and I should use them more, but because of the not blending out with water thing and because they go through so badly, I probably am using them less than I should. But as I said, they are actually very nice. This is my kind of, when I want to kind of switch out my, you know, if you use, I showed you the box with my kind of markers I use all the time. And sometimes you kind of want to switch over to something else. So this is my spare, or my kind of a other water-based marker set. And this is organized differently. Basically, I have put everything here. There's different types, different brands of markers here, but they're all pretty much put into the blending sets, and pretty tight blending sets like this. You know, all the colors that would work really well together. And how I mostly play with them is that I kind of scratch them onto the palette and just kind of keep picking them up and create color variations and darker shading and whatnot. You know, you have like these are more yellowy or muted greens. There's even odd pit pen here, you know. There's, you know, different undertones of browns. You know, those are like cooler browns here. These are more of a skin tony, or kind of a beiges here. These, you know, also different types of grays. Like I have warm grays here. I have cool grays here. So this is how they're organized. And I find this actually very, very handy. You pretty much can pull it out and kind of get interesting color variations by just working off, you know, the bundle you have. Because I have actually, you know, kind of, when I actually put this together, I kind of swatched or kind of scribbled everything, and I made sure that, you know, all the colors work in these little bundles. They work together. Even though, you know, the lids might not tell you that, but the actual colors work. And I will just show you, you know, what markers I have here. The first one, and the one you probably see the most of, almost, are these ones. I'm going to lift it to the side. Are these ones, and these are Stabilo, sorry, not Stabilo, Staedtler, they're like regular felt tip pens or water-based markers. They come in different sets, but the sets I had was 120, and if you're saying it doesn't look like you have 120, you are correct. Because obviously, you know, if you have as many water-based markers as you have, the kind of a typical midtones and primaries and kind of the most kind of popular or the most well kind of represented colors are going to repeat throughout the sets. So what I did with Staedtler set is that I got rid of all the colors that I felt were redundant, kind of I had them in so many sets already, and it just wasn't any point holding on to them. And I kept the colors that were kind of a more interesting, more sophisticated, kind of more tertiary or vintagey, muted in some way, or interesting undertones, or colors that I felt that I didn't have many of, or kind of lighter colors and such. So this is why I don't have the full 120 set. And the tips are pretty much the same as, very similar, or pretty much the same as the Crayola Supertips that you all know. They also feel pretty much the same. One thing about these markers now is that the inks are all right. They're not as good as Stabilo 68 or their even their own kind of the watercolor markers, but they are decent inks. These markers are super juicy. Oh, I'll show you the other side as well. It's one of those kind of a scratchy tips. It's kind of felt tip, but it feels almost plasticky and is very scratchy, but it gives this narrow, it'll kind of almost works like a fine liner. One thing about these ones is now that they are super juicy and they last for very long time. I had a set of them when my kids were maybe like, I don't know, 5, 6, and 12 years later, the ones that were still left, that they hadn't lost in the school or whatever, were still super juicy. They are fantastic. They don't dry out easily and they are very, very juicy. Therefore, because they are so juicy, obviously they are good for using direct blending. So if you go onto the paper like this is very juicy, you can just blend it out with similar color. You could go, more back and forth, of course, but I just wanted to show you that kind of a effect. They are therefore, I think, very useful because of the super juiciness. But that super juiciness also, do not go near Amazon paper directly with these water-based markers, because they are so juicy, because they will bleed like mad. There is no controlling these on Amazon paper. They are just too juicy for it. And I have gotten the most horrific bleeds a couple of times. I have gotten in Amazon books that I was really kind of one time I just had to scrap the page. One time it took me ages to kind of figure out how to save it. They bleed on that paper because of the soft, kind of very absorbent paper, which essentially toilet paper. Yeah, it just, there's no controlling them. So yeah, I would not go near. But on any other book, that juiciness is actually helping to not have any significant streaking. So let's take this fairly matte color. See, I have kept some, kind of fun and bonkers colors. Okay, let's take this little blossom here. And it goes down, because it's so wet, it goes down fast. And because it, goes down wet, it stays wet that little bit longer, and therefore you get way less streaking. But there is, of course, because of the same reason, much higher chance of going through the paper. So if you are working on double-sided paper when you're not sure how the paper is going to cope with juicier water-based marker, try on some sheet or some page you don't feel sorry for, because it does tend to go through. Here it doesn't, but let's take this book. I know that it probably would go through here. Let's take a random thing. What would be a random thing here? I have no idea. That's what happens. Okay, image I probably won't do. Okay, I probably won't do that one. Not really my thing. Okay, so if I go over it here, you can still see, you know, this is not now, you know, the paper that is as smooth and as welcoming to water-based markers as the one that, you know, in the Emilia Liederheld Öberg book. But it's still, you can see how the juiciness of the markers helps with no streaking. Okay, I'm being very sloppy here, so I'm going over the lines all over the place. This is not what this is about. No, I'm not trying to be tidy. I'm just trying to show you that it's a relatively big area, and yes, you will get a little bit of texture, which I will kind of smooth out with very, very gentle, deliberate texture added. But it does not look super streaky or anything, because it is so watery. But I can also see, I'm pretty sure it will go through. I would be surprised if it didn't. I just hope I didn't ruin other page underneath there either. That could have easily happened. But you can still see now I'm lifting it close to you. There's the maybe tiny bit of texture here and there, but there's certainly no streaking. And that's because they are so juicy. But you can see, yes, they did go through. Not now hugely, because this paper is still pretty decent, but they definitely went through. You know, there's no questioning it. So I do actually recommend that set, you know, if you want kind of one single set with loads of colors that would be juicy and that you can use in single-sided books, and even, you know, kind of a thicker paper, because, you know, you saw here, nice, good thicker paper also accepted them, and there's nothing, you know, no going through here, for example, then yeah, recommend it. And they have, of course, because it's a big set, there's a nice selection of colors. There's darker ones, there's mid-tones, there's even, you know, kind of a pastel-y, relatively pastel-y, and they also dissolve, as I showed here. I can actually, I didn't show you with the water brush. I can do that. I showed you how they blend with each other, but who keeps losing her water brush? Guess who? But they do dissolve with the water brush. Not as good as some of the other ones, but they do dissolve. You can also very easily work off the little, you know, kind of a palette with them in any coloring book that accepts a bit more water, that you can blend things with the water brush on the paper. So let me write down before I forget everything again. Okay, these ones were Ohuhu Pupe, and these ones were now Staedtler, not Stabilo. Staedtler 120 set. And it is genuinely a good set. The next ones that I have are, there's smaller ones and bigger ones from the same brand that I can't find now, the smaller ones here. I know I have some, I got rid of most of them. This is Giotto, and they are kind of at this really nice, big, juicy tip. There's not too many colors. I think there's like 24 or something, but they are nice and juicy and kind of good for doing a little bit bigger area as well, because they do not streak very much. So therefore, recommended. They are not also, you know, kind of groundbreaking, but they are absolutely all right. And, you know, perfectly workable. Okay, let me see. Where's my water brush again? See, constantly losing it. But they are not the best for blending out with water like this. So you can either work off the palette with them, or, you know, lid of the coffee pot or coffee jar, or you can just, you know, use them directly on a slightly bigger area. I don't have many of them. Most of them, they're just kind of left from my kind of a kids. They're meant for kids, obviously, you know, most of them are meant for kids, but they're kind of left from my kids' coloring days. And but they're in perfect working order, therefore, you know, I'm keeping them, because there's some nice colors. Like there's some, I think they have like skin tone set, and I have, you know, most of these at least left. So they're absolutely workable. So I write that here. So that's Giotto. And next ones are, I have very little, okay, but I have some Supertips. I have the pastel set, which I think is 24 of them, kind of pastel colors. And I have, I think, a 24 set, or 24 or 12 sets, I don't remember, but which I got in a shop just to try out Crayola Supertips, because they're not that big here. So I, you know, but everybody was going on about them and praising them. So I said, okay, I would like to try it out since people seem to like them. And there they are. And yes, I do like them. They're also very nice and juicy and go down smoothly. And they also wash out. You can see the difference, you know, kind of between how they wash out and how Giotto washes out. Like they wash out fully if the paper is in any way has some sizing and, you know, allows to move the pigment around. And you know them very well. I don't probably have to explain to you about, you know, how Crayolas work, because I actually have less experience with them than most of you probably would. They are, well, especially probably in US, but also in kind of a Europe, pretty decent price. They're not super expensive. The colors are pretty good. Like this is interesting red. You know, it's not very in your face. There's depth and slightly vintage feel to it, and slight mutedness, which I like. So this is why I still have it, because I got rid of a lot of kind of very, very primary, very harsh colors, because I have plenty of these. So in this set, I mostly have, you know, this kind of a big set. I mostly have colors that are kind of more interesting for me, or kind of more complex, well, as far as water-based markers go, because they're not really famous for complex colors. And yeah, this is pretty much it about Crayolas. I don't have much to say about them. You all know how they work. Well, I think they know, but they are good. They are a good all-rounder. You can use them directly on the paper. You can use them on the palette and with the water brush. Absolutely can do pretty much anything. In smaller areas, if you work quickly and gently, don't touch. I think a problem with water-based markers is that a lot of people just use them too heavy-handed, kind of press them on hard, whereas you barely need to touch them to paper. And whether you touch them gently or onto the paper, or whether you press them hard, the color output is going to be the same. It's not like it's like a pencil that if you press gently, it's going to have, you know, kind of a lighter color, and if you press harder, it's going to have more kind of a pigment output. It doesn't matter for the water-based markers. So if you work gently, you actually get better finish, you get less streaking, and you also get more kind of well, you get less damage to the paper. And you know, the damage can be pretty serious with water-based markers. You can pretty much make a hole, which I'll ask me how I know. Now the next thing is, these are milk liners, and I don't have really much to say about them. I don't really love them as a coloring tool. The tip looks like it might be, you know, pretty much the same as Crayola Supertip, but it's not. It's not as juicy, but it's similar enough, but it's not as juicy. Why I keep it is that they do have some interesting kind of muted colors. So, you know, just for the pastels, essentially. They don't really wash out with water, as you can see. Okay, I'm going to write here. So this is Crayola. This is milk liner. And the colors are good, but the inks aren't that great. They don't really kind of dissolve. I tried to kind of rub the end of it with water. Nothing really happened. So they're okay on their own, but they don't really go down very evenly if the area is a little bit bigger. Small areas, yes, they're fine. You get kind of this soft pastel-y finish. But if the area is a little bit bigger, then no. So I wouldn't really recommend them, as, you know, unless you kind of just feel like getting something interesting or fun and kind of playing with it a little bit. But they're not really the best tool for coloring. And then one of my big favorites that I got them ages ago. They are, I think, 15 years old. And these are the ones. They are, you can see how old they are because they're still letter set. Nowadays they are Winsor and Newton Aqua markers, because they have changed, you know, the owner, the company. But back when I got them, they were still letter set. So that's over 15 years ago, I think. They are amazing. The ink in them is amazing. I don't have now all the colors of these. They are, of course, expensive, as you might imagine. But I have fair few from back when I was doing mostly card making, and I would have used them on actual watercolor paper, on which they absolutely wash out with no traces of, you know, any streaks or anything. So I have a selection of them in different colorways. I can show it, since I was using here mostly reds for samples. You know, I'm taking out a red. They have two nibs. One looks like, if you know ProMarkers or alcohol markers, a bullet nibs, that's pretty much the nib there is. This one you would pretty much use a little, putting tiny details down, or, you know, if you want to blend things out for, you know, very small areas. And then they have this kind of a giant brush. You can see here now. It's really, really big. It's not super soft, but it puts down a lot of pigment. And I mean a lot. Like crazy amount. Where is my brush? And then if you wash it out, you can just keep going with that pigment forever. It is so pigmented. They are fantastic. And, you know, same story, you know, on the paper that can take that sort of a treatment, you know, Japanese papers, mixed media papers, some papers from Eileen Muldoon books allow you to do that. You know, there's quite a lot of books, not a lot, but there are books, Western books as well, that allow you to use markers directly on the paper, and then wash, you know, kind of blend them out like this with water brush. This is amazing. They are stunning. The colors are stunning. The quality is stunning. And also, one funny thing now, okay, you saw what I put out with that big brush. Now if you put down with the bullet tip, you almost get a different color and you get way less ink because it's not designed to put out that much ink. So the big brush is designed to put out loads of ink and you almost get a different color. Well, you do get a different color from the bullet nib and you get way less pigment also. So you kind of decide, you know, which end you're going to use. It might also be exacerbated by the fact that they have been sitting for 15 years. That probably the split is now bigger than it originally was. But in pretty much all of them, you have this. Well, this is actually quite similar to both ends, but some of them have really different kind of a color from one end to other. But I absolutely love these ones, and I'm surprised that they aren't more popular. But of course, I understand that they're also very, very expensive. But those are now watercolor markers, were supposedly watercolor. It's still dye-based, I bet you. But, you know, they're meant to be like watercolor. And they're meant for watercoloring. So they are literally made for dissolving and kind of creating watercolor effects and working possibly, probably more on watercolor paper, as opposed to, you know, coloring book paper. So these are pretty much now all the things I have in this beautiful box here that I love dearly. And now I have just a little to show. We're not too far from the end. Like, there's 2 more things I'm going to show and then I'm done. First thing is these, and these are, I don't even know if they are available that much anymore. They are Spectrum Noir, and they are Tricolour Aqua markers, and these are also kind of one of those quality markers that you put them down. Let me see if I have enough water going. And they, well, on this paper, weirdly, it doesn't really, well, it depends on the paper a little bit, but most of the time, I have to say, they do wash pretty much without trace, but here you can actually see the line. I'm wondering if it's the paper issue. It's like a different paper. Because on some paper, yeah, it was a paper. See, it worked much better on this paper. So it all depends a lot, you know, on the paper as well. And these come in kind of a, they almost come like, well, almost, they come pretty much as mixing sets. There's essentially, well, at least I haven't seen, maybe there are and I'm lying to you, but there doesn't seem to be any browns or any grays. It's essentially kind of mixing colors, you know, you mix them together, possible on the paper, but most likely they are meant to be essentially mixed on, you know, some sort of a surface or palette and then used as watercolor. I have 9 of them. And there are, you know, like one of them is literally like, you know, primary, cool primaries, you know, here. You can see it's literally a mixing marker. So there's cool primaries, there's warm primaries, and there was complementaries as well, yeah, and there's complementaries. And, you know, from these, you should be able to mix pretty much, you know, most of the stuff that you need. The problem for me is that there's not much kind of a strong darks, and the cool primaries, the yellow is a bit too weak. But other than that, you know, idea is great. And you know, there's different you know, this is Kingfisher, so you have these kind of a strong blues and blue greens. This is Sunrise, so you have these kind of a warm glowy colors, and so on. They are really great for mixing, but there's no strong dark colors, which is not really a problem, because in most sets strong dark colors are very, very much represented. So these are kind of a great to play with, but I haven't really played with them as much as I probably should have. They do work nice direct on the paper as well. I'm going to grab a color from here, which, you know, kind of might work. But they absolutely would work for kind of a coloring like this from the little palette. So I can show here which flower are we going to do? Are we going to do this one? Because they are quite juicy. The brush tip is a nice, on the soft side. It's softer than the Tombow and Lyra brush tips. So the control is probably not as good. But at the same time, because it's so soft and so juicy, the blending is going to be fantastic. And once again, you know, there is no streaking, at least, you know, on the good paper like this, which of course is deceptive, but I can also show you on the Amazon paper in a second. But the problem with these is that although I'm rattling on about this marker now, I'm not even sure how easily they would be available for people in US, for example, or if they are kind of discontinued altogether, because I got them on the very, very good sale on the Spectrum Noir, you know, their own website, the Crafter's Companion website. They had this big sale and I got them for a very good price. Like, I wouldn't have probably bought them otherwise, but I got them for a really good price. I was like, okay, I'll try them out. So you can see how juicy it is from the amount that went through, but you know, they all went through, let's be honest. But it is nice and even, very juicy, and you get this kind of really strong effect. So yeah, absolutely fun, interesting markers that I should be using and playing with more. So eventually, hopefully, I will. And the last one is, oh, this is the set I absolutely love and I'm slightly heartbroken about, is this one. It's 3 sets like this. They are called Ohuhu Art Markers, and they are essentially, or used to be, sadly, Ohuhu's kind of an answer to Tombow's. And the colors are fantastic because they really went out trying to get these ones. I now almost never use as watercolors, you know, off the palette. I use them as literally basing markers because there's so many light colors. I can show you now, there's 3 sets and they kind of go by strength. So I think this one was the lightest, and this is how light the colors are, which is kind of weirdly this fairly strong green is in the middle there. But this is how pale colors you get, or got, because I think they're discontinued. You can't find them anywhere now, and I wish dearly that, well, I don't know how well they would kind of be preserved, you know, if they weren't used, would they dry up, you know, but I would, you know, because some of them are now starting to get dry. They are really nice for basing. I wish that I had spares. This is the second set, which is, you know, slightly brighter, but still a lot of pastels. A lot of light colors. You know, the colors that in most water-based markers would be as light as they go, kind of pastels, you know, here are in the more vibrant set. So it's very rare set that really has light colors. And I'm going to show you the tips. It's essentially like pretty much the very similar, not exactly the same, but you know, very similar to Tombow, and also works very similarly. Isn't as juicy, like one of the reasons it isn't as juicy anymore is that I've used them a lot, but they really are nice, kind of a base. Oh, okay, genius. Okay, one should always clean the brush, and I keep forgetting. So I never really tried to wash them out. Well, I don't think I have, because I was never a need for it, because they're already nice and light colors, so it doesn't really wash out that great, as you can see from here. But I never, that's not what I use them for. I literally use them for basing in books that are double-sided, and you know, I can't really be bothered to pull any paints out or anything. I use these a lot because they are light, they don't go through very easily, and the colors are fantastic. Oh, and I forgot to show you the other tip is essentially kind of very similar to the Tombow Lyra tip as well. There was little felt tip, narrow one. So these are the ones, but yeah, sadly they are now discontinued. If anybody can find them anywhere, just, you know, sometimes people happen across things on eBay or whatever. Not here, because, you know, nothing ships here. Nothing ships to Ireland, or if it does, the price is whoa. But, you know, if you happen to get across them or get a good deal on them, yeah, get them. They are good. And this is the bit of a brightest set, and that would have kind of more of a mid-tones. Your more typical colors, but even this is a nice choice of colors. So yeah, absolutely recommend it, especially, you know, those two lighter sets. Of course, this set, although I use this set, you know, as well if I'm doing basing, because sometimes you want, you know, some areas brighter, some areas lighter, but they are really work good. They don't streak hugely. Let me see if I can pull this one. Let's do a pink flower. Okay, so let's do here. Okay, so let's put a little pink down here. And of course, it depends how much you've used that marker. You know, the ones that are getting a bit dry, of course, are going to be streaking a bit more, because you don't have the same kind of wet blending effect anymore. But the ones that are less used are nice and smooth. No particular streaking, or not what I would call problematic streaking. Would work pretty much, you know, the same. Of course, it would be streaking more in the Amazon books, but that's just the name of the game. You know, you can't change that. It's the paper's fault, not the marker's fault. So yeah, if you can get your hands on these, very, very highly recommend. But I kind of suspect that it would be a challenge. They are great, and they were also quite reasonably priced. Of course, it's Ohuhu, you know, it wasn't super expensive or anything. They weren't, you know, kind of they weren't the cheapest, of course. They were kind of their higher end water-based markers, but you know, compared to Tombows and Lyras, they were very cheap, and the quality is pretty much the same, and the colors are amazing. So if you can get your hands on them, get them. Okay, thank you very much. I can only imagine that you are absolutely exhausted if you actually stuck with me I do not think I'm going to be able to edit this much, but you know, fingers crossed, some of you stuck with me and you found something here of use. I know that I'm not the most organized person as far as swatching and stuff goes, and because I just don't work that way, so I can't change who I am, or don't want to particularly change who I am. But yeah, maybe you picked up some interesting suggestions, and you know, maybe those samples were somewhat useful. I hope you're having a great creative time, and just a very good day or evening or morning, whatever the time is in your corner of the world. And hopefully you will keep coming back to see my videos. If you like them, please like and subscribe, and maybe leave a comment if you can spare time, because that really helps my channel. And thank you again, and bye bye.